Good morning and welcome. We see a lot of you coming in right now. Want to say happy Friday, everybody, and hello to Debbie. Debbie, it's not very often you and I see each other face to face, but once or twice a year, and that was this week. So really good to see you virtually as well. I'm back in Utah, and Debbie's in her sunshine, beautiful weather, Southern California.
No, it's the May gray time of year. So no sunshine today, but I love this topic. I would say I love all of them, but this is my very most favorite because I feel that you all have so much more power to move people forward than you even realize that you do. And Sean, I know that a few or potentially on the Place Friday meeting last week when the chief economist for NAR spoke to us about the market and the future of the market ahead. Now, guys, it's all good, right? I mean, it's all good. We've been through the hard. Now, I'm not saying it's easy. And his point was we need to get used to hanging out in the sixes because he's anticipating 6.4% this year, not much lower, 6.1% next year. So that really ties into this creating urgency because a lot of your prospects, they're trying to time the market. They're sitting on the fence, waiting for rates to drop, waiting for prices to drop, which it's not going to happen. In fact, he predicted it could be anywhere from, I think he said, Sean, 3 to 20% appreciation in the next year plus, depending on the market. So if you have any hang up about going to your buyers and saying, hey, now's the time, we need to get into action, I hope you'll get over that, right? Because
have to.
They're going to lose money.
Record-breaking fence sitters last year, right, Debbie? Like everyone's sitting on the sideline, and this is the topic: how to create urgency. How do we communicate with our buyers and sellers right now?
Yeah, so we're going to go fast because we have a lot to cover in a short time. And of course, we're recording this. And, you know, I started selling real estate when I was 18. My first year in the business, fixed rates went to 18%. I got to tell you guys, I learned some hard lessons about how to create urgency with fixed rates or 18%, right? So if you look at the key tactics of urgency, time, scarcity, social proof, it's really valuable to have testimonials or third-party stories about others who made wise choices or not so wise choices because your clients want to learn from that. Now, authority. So, for example, if I just came on here and told you my thoughts about the market ahead, you'd be like, whatever. But when I can say the chief economist for NAR, who has a history of being very accurate, see, that's authority. And then, of course, the consequences, the negative outcome of missed opportunities. Now, our friends, our LO friends over at Envoy Mortgage have a cost of waiting calculator. So if anyone's with us here from Envoy, you can type your info in the chat or how to get that calculator, or you can go to Envoy's website. I'm sure it's accessible because if you can show them with data, if you wait, this is the real numbers of what potentially you're going to lose. Because, Sean, then that creates that sense of important, immediate time sensitivity in making a decision to move forward or not.
Yeah, the other thing we saw last week, Debbie, I'm trying to remember if it's the same call or not. Actually, it was in a different training. You've seen this slide, though, and that is the difference in wealth between someone who's a homeowner and someone who's renting. And if you don't have anyone joining us on this call today doesn't have that slide, Google it and just show the difference between wealth of a homeowner and someone who's renting. That's something else that can create some urgency for us.
Absolutely. And when that urgency is effectively created, and by the way, it's not effectively created by running around with a megaphone saying, now is the time, right? That is so salesy. But when I think of effectively created, that's when you're showing that data, those numbers. How does that relate to their situation? Then that will create that feeling that there is a limited window of opportunity or a pressing need to act. And of course, as we're thinking about this, we're thinking of it as ethical persuasion. And the reason I say that is if somebody is not able to buy, or they literally have no interest, then this does not apply. But when you think about the difference between, we talked about this, Sean, at Fred's event, an agent and a sales professional takes a motivated prospect by the hand, counsels, advises, provides the right information to help them overcome their fear and hesitation to make their decision. Because we all get stuck, right? It's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Counseling, consulting, and helping them make the best decision personally for themselves, right?
Right. And we mentioned the Envoy mortgage, and I apologize, I can't pull that. I don't know, Sean, if you can find it while we're going here. But I am just such a believer that you need a super strong mortgage partner, because they need to be able to sell just like you sell, right? They need to be able to sit with these people and not be dry and boring, but be able to get them excited, to inform them, to use their tools to explain options, right? And that's part of that persuasion.
And Rachna raised that question that you addressed, Debbie. I would just say email me and I'll find that calculator for you. Rachna, it's just Sean, SHAUN at landvoice.com. Tell me what market you're in as well, because I think there's an Envoy mortgage lender in that market that I can connect you with that has that calculator.
Yep, and I typed in the name of the company. Okay, so our goal is to create a very genuine sense of urgency by conveying value, benefits, and time sensitivity. So let's talk about that in terms of a buyer right now. Well, if the rates aren't quite at 6.4 or 6.1, well, the great news is I can take you to a lender, and many lenders have these programs. I know Envoy certainly does. They call it a boomerang loan, where we can get you a loan today. And if the rates drop to an amount that makes it appropriate to refinance, they will do that for you at no additional cost. So, Sean, you can see for the small amount of difference in interest you might pay prior to the rate drop, it really makes no sense to wait, right? And at least when you make a purchase, you can control and lock in the cost of your housing. So one thing too is there's lots of options for them, like the buy down programs, especially with homes right now sitting on the market a little bit longer. In much of the country, I'm seeing 30 to 60 days on market, 1 or 2 price adjustments, which means right now your buyer might have a chance of getting a seller to participate in paying for some of those buy down costs.
Sorry, Debbie, I got stuck on another screen here.
Okay. Great question to ask. How long are you prepared to stay in your current situation? Right? And I also want to caution all of you that sometimes they do lie to us, right?
and sometimes they just don't know and throw a number out at us, Debbie, right?
Yeah. And that's why we want to ask great questions, to dig in and think of yourself like a detective reading between the lines. And Sean might say, well, I'm thinking I'm going to wait until the end of the year. Now, I could jump right into, now is a good time, you better hurry, prices are going to go up. But I need to really understand, why is he thinking that? Right? So I might say, Okay, Sean, I'm going to make a note, end of the year. May I ask you what's important for you about waiting until the end of the year? And Sean might say, I just think it's going to be a better time to buy. Okay, well, if we were able to do a deep dive, examine real data and facts, and after doing that, Sean, if you were 100% convinced that this might be a better time, could you consider a purchase sooner? Now, what if Sean says to me, no, I can't because I'm having brain surgery tomorrow and I can't do anything for 6 months? Well, then I would have been pretty foolish going any further with the questions, right? That's why I ask what's important about that time frame. Is it a condition or is it an objection?
So we're discovering, aren't we, Debbie? And once we understand that, let's say it is the end of the year, my rule, and you and I have talked about this before, but we're typically following up a lot earlier than whatever that date is, right? I think that's important. And then most of you should have a CRM. You should have a CRM. We like Brivity. Debbie and I both love Brivity. But we should make sure that we're staying in front of them with market reports or listing alerts and showing them those homes that they're looking for as well, because we know we have interest in some of these. This individual has interest in looking at some point.
Yeah, because often they don't tell you the real time frame, or maybe they actually think that is their time frame. But to Sean's point, once they start thinking about it, they start getting excited. And then they start moving that date up. And you're not calling them because you thought the date they told you was the date. And now you call them and they've already bought a home or they've already sold. So a good rule of thumb is at least cut it in half and maybe create a plan. Sean, I really want to earn the right to be the agent you will choose when you're ready. So would it be all right with you if I check in with you each and every month, give you a market update, see what questions you have, and just keep you well informed as we wait for you to recover from your surgery, right? Like, I want to create a plan with them. I don't want to just assume that what they told me is correct.
Debbie, I hope everybody wrote that down. Can you say the start of that again? I would like the right to become your agent. Is that what you said?
So Sean, I can appreciate that you absolutely are certain you don't want to make a move until the end of the year. And I am more than willing to do the work to earn the right to be your agent at that time.
Earn the right.
Yeah, here's what I would like to do for you. And that could be, I'm going to set you up on a market report, listing alerts. I'm going to check with you once a month. Would that be okay? Great. I'm going to make a reminder in my CRM and I will not forget. And so now I don't feel weird when I'm calling Sean each month, because this is a value add I offered him and he agreed to it, right? He said, yeah, that's great. I want to hear from you.
Yep, no question.
Mm-hmm. So always our goal is build trust and rapport to relieve their anxiety. I was talking about this at the event this week. Chris Voss, he's the guy that wrote the book, Never Split the Difference. He's the ex-FBI hostage negotiator. And I was watching his masterclass on an airplane, and it was not made for real estate agents or real estate home buyers or sellers. But he happened to mention, he said, if you're working with people in the real estate space, they're buying, they're selling, they're transacting, he said they are the most stressed out people on the planet. So you have to calm down, slow down, ask great questions, really listen to their answers, acknowledge and approve. Ask some clarifying questions. So you can typically go 3, 4, 5 questions deep before you really understand what they're trying to say. And that's one of the best ways to build rapport, right, Sean? Ask great questions.
That really resonated when you were on stage this week. As I was listening to you, as real estate agents, we wear a lot of different hats, but one of them really has to be to reduce stress and anxiety. They've got a lot on their plate. And
Right.
what we have to do is really kind of de escalate that. So, love what you're saying there.
Yeah. And a great way to do it is keep your energy. I think if they're this excited, I need to be just this excited, not this excited, right? Kind of
Mhm.
stay right there with them. So just remember your job as a great salesperson is to help them overcome their fear and procrastination to achieve the goal they have set for their future. Now, I'm going to date myself, but I'm going to tell you that before Zillow existed or any of the search portals that consumers can now search in, before that existed, we had all the power, right? We controlled all the real estate information. When that opened up, you know what the story was, or the rumor was? That real estate agents would not exist within 5 years. Now, that was 20 years ago, guys. I think 25 years ago. Guess what? We're still standing.
We
Why?
are.
Because of that. They need you to hold their hand and help them overcome that fear. However, we cannot want it for them more than they do. So you may have nice people in your lead list, but you got to determine needs, wants, and motivation. Because if they're just tire kickers, hey, let's nurture them, let's put them on market reports, but let's make sure you are super focused on those hottest and best. Sean, I have kind of a funny story on this. When I was a brand new agent, I didn't know what a lead was. I mean, I was prospecting, but I had papers and leads all over my desk. And I said to my broker, gosh, I have so many leads. I need to refer some of these to somebody. And he looked at me and he looked at the deal board. He goes, what are you talking about? You don't even have a deal on the board. What do you mean you've
Mhm.
got too many leads?
Yep.
But what he did is he sat with me and he went through them one by one. Where's their money? I'll never forget this one. I said, well, they're inheriting it from their aunt. He goes, did she die? No, I don't think so yet. Is she sick? Don't know. He's like, this is not a buyer, right?
Ha ha.
And he went through them with me. And then he said, these are your top three. Now you're going to take this one, the best one, go sell them a house this week. And then he said something to me. It's a little graphic, but he said, Debbie, when a lion is hunting antelope in the jungle, the lion doesn't try to eat the whole herd at one time. The lion grabs one, eats them, and then goes back and gets another. Do that. And
Interesting.
it just made
Yeah.
it so clear, right? I have
So
to
clear.
focus on the motivated people.
Yeah, we've got to nurture the leads.
Right?
And I like the board. I like that analogy. I also like acronyms a lot. And I'm trying to remember this slide and just internalize it. And my acronym is now NWM. How do we find the needs, wants, and motivation of our sellers, of our buyers? And really it comes from the questions that you're talking about, Debbie.
It does. And all three factors have got to be present, right? They have to be ready, willing, and able, or they are a nurture, right? And so ready is their personal reasons. What is motivating them? What is making them say, I need to sell now, I need to buy now? Sometimes they'll hide that a little. The difference between a stated position and reality, for example, when they say, I don't have to sell. And yet, based on their situation, actually, they really do, right? So we have to dig deep, but we've got to find, are they actually ready to make this move?
Such a timely conversation today. This is exactly what we have to be in full discovery mode, don't we?
Absolutely. And then willingness, that's their sense of urgency. I used to have really pretty strong heart to heart with buyers who looked like they were ready, and I knew they were financially capable. But when I would call them to see a great property, they wouldn't call me back, or they were never available, or they were always late, wouldn't make a decision. And I would say, gosh, guys, you gotta level with me here. Are you actually willing to take the steps at this time to get into a home? Or has something changed with your motivation? And then, of course, able financial. Now, I get it. Going to the lender and getting pre-approved is not the most fun part for them. Sort of like if we were going to go buy a new car today, we want to test drive it and sit in it. And then it's like, oh, we got to go talk to the finance manager. That's why, though, you need to sell them on, hey, if we want to give you the best negotiating advantage, I need to get you together with an awesome lender, get you well educated, well prepared. What is our maximum budget? So I don't show you the wrong thing, too cheap or too expensive, and get that documentation that will allow us to negotiate aggressively on your behalf. So we need to take that first step. You know, Sean, we've all made mistakes. And I remember the first time I sold $1 million house when it was really a lot, like 20 years ago, and I sold it to a doctor. So he was referred to me. He showed up in a red Ferrari, wearing a Rolex, dressed fabulously. I knew which hospital he worked at, so I knew he was a doctor. So I just took him out and showed him the house and sold it to him. I did not pre-qualify him. And doctors actually can pretty easily get financing, even special programs for doctors. Guess what, guys? His credit was awful. He had had a bankruptcy. He had credit cards charged to the max. He had slow pays on his Ferrari. He owed child support. This guy was a disaster. But I didn't figure that out because I just assumed he was qualified. So able. Are they financially able before you waste a lot of time with them?
That's right, Debbie. I mean, our job is to reduce barriers, right? And when we're reducing barriers, we got to know if they've got a good credit score, can they be approved? And so getting them pre-approved early is so important.
So again, do the math. The numbers are going to help your prospects see the real dollars and to get a real sense of what it would take to achieve their goals. One caution, though, and Sean, we talked about this at Fred's event. Remember, the math and the logic is important. People, though, buy based on emotion. They buy, they sell based on emotion. The logic helps them have enough reasons to justify what they actually want to do, right? And that's why we give them those reasons. So we've got to remind them that any decline in rate, even a small one, is going to spark even greater demand. So now is really potentially their best window of opportunity.
If we're thinking ahead and if we have their best interest in mind, we really should be talking about now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so just remind first-time buyers, the house doesn't have to be perfect. When both of my daughters bought houses in the last couple of years with their husbands, I mean, I'm like, really? Yeah, the kitchen is not remodeled. It is your first house, honey. So we got to remind them, get in the game, right? Quit holding out for what's perfect. I always do believe that neighborhood is critical, location, like we always have said, location, location, location. And maybe the house is a little homely, and that's why they can get that seller to pay for a buy down for them. Yep. And this is from our Envoy people. Remind them you can't lock in your rent, but you can lock in your housing costs. So you can date the rate, marry the house, date the rate, right? Because always get that refi down the road if it makes sense.
Good reminder. I was taking an Uber yesterday from the event, Debbie, to the airport, and my Uber driver, he his rent is $3,000 a month on a one-bedroom apartment there in southern LA. And so this is the type of reminder. These are the things we want to educate our renters on: is to get them in a home, marry that home, date the rate. I love that term. I think it's very applicable in today's market.
Bottom line, nobody can really time the market. Most homeowners own their properties 7+ years. I think about the mistakes in real estate that I have made. It was the two properties I owned as rentals that I sold because I thought the market was dropping and I should sell them. I remember one clearly. I paid 130. It went up to 185. Market was dropping. It dropped to 165. I panicked. I sold it. And if I owned it today, it would be worth about $950,000. So, yeah, I made a mistake. That was dumb.
We all do. Yep.
So you guys have much greater ability to spark action than you realize. Get a great mortgage partner, study the data, like be a market expert, right? And own the power of being that wise advisor and that really helpful resource. So speaking of help, if you're considering coaching as a way to ramp up for the second half, I have some of the most world-class coaches. They are amazing and they're standing by to help. And I'll be happy to talk to you about it. And Sean, I always love being here with you guys. And yay, it's Friday. I hope they have lots of exciting and productive activities coming up for the weekend ahead.
Debbie, thank you as always. Happy Friday, everyone out there. Hope you have a great week and watch for this recording to post soon.
Bye, guys. See you soon.
We'll see you.